Hey, Taniel, how's it going?
Risa, hello from the tropics. I bet you I'm doing better than you. What's the weather like?
That's really unfair and mean and cruel, but I'm not even. We have hit
It is.
winter like never before. It is cold up here. Um, so I'm glad we're going to be talking about living in Puerto Vallarta versus living in New York at the moment because
Siberia.
yeah. Yeah,
Siberia,
sometimes
USA.
that's what it feels like. Um, but yeah, I mean, I love PV. I've been there a million times, as you
Hmm.
know, and people are always asking, like, where are the best places to live in PV, right? Because PV has
Yeah,
grown so much.
yeah.
Um, so I thought that this would be a good time for us to even talk about it. Like, maybe you can kind of first describe where PV is,
Hmm.
and then kind of like the big chunks of neighborhoods where it is ideal as a foreigner to live.
Yeah, sure. Well, Puerto Vallarta is in the state of Jalisco. We're on the west coast, so we're right up next to the Pacific Ocean. And Puerto Vallarta is located in the Banderas Bay, which is one of the largest natural bays in the world. And PV, as we call it, is in the center of the bay. So the bay is kind of like a crescent moon, and Vallarta is almost exactly in the middle. And
Which is why
we've
you
got,
can see whales in the winter.
yes, actually, the whales are here now. Some friends of mine have been sending me photos. Some friends that live on the beach, they've been snapping photos in the mornings with all the whales breaching.
Oh,
So they're definitely here. Yeah, it's really cool. And they're usually here until around February, sometimes until March. Then we have dolphins all year round. So seeing a pod of dolphins
and
is really
sea
cool too.
turtles, and yeah,
So,
it's
so,
pretty
but
magical if you like sea life.
yeah, the hatching of the sea turtles is great. That happens here too during the winters. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that goes on here with Mother Nature. So, it's a special place to be for sure. So that's why I've been here for 19 years. So love it.
I know, it's so crazy, huh? So I imagine you've seen PV grow and change a lot over the last 19 years.
Yes, a lot. I didn't anticipate Vallarta was going to be what it is today, and I'm glad that it's growing. I mean, there are always growing pains with any city that's kind of developing and moving forward. But I've seen, the money that's been pumped into the new infrastructure of the city. I've seen the airport expanded like maybe 3 or 4 times, and they have plans to expand the airport yet again. The cruise ship terminal has been expanded a couple times over. When I first moved here, I believe this is like what October 2003. They could only have one large cruise ship and a medium-sized cruise ship um, in the at the cruise ship terminal. Now it could handle three large cruise ships at once, and then have one tendered out in the middle of the
Wow.
bay. So yeah, and then they redid the boardwalk, the old Malecon, which was really charming, but it just wasn't functional anymore because of Vallarta's popularity. So they rebuilt the Malecon for the Pan Am Games of 2011, I believe it was. And like the new city Fluvial that they built, all the electrical is underground. So the city's been, as the city grows, they're pumping money into the infrastructure and expanding accordingly. Yeah, it's been great.
That's great.
Yeah,
So I think one of the stronghold, like expat neighborhoods, is the romantic zone, right? That's
hands
still
down.
the most popular, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And why
So
is that?
yeah, I mean the romantic zone. They call it the romantic zone because the streets are just so charming, cobblestone streets, and there are trees lined up everywhere. And some old Vallarta homes are located there. And of course, throughout the years, we've had a lot of condo buildings go up. But what makes the romantic zone really great, a number of reasons, right? Not just one. We've got a whole bunch of restaurants, cafes. If you're into the nightlife, there are a lot of bars, nightclubs to go to. The romantic zone borders the Los Muertos beach, which is the number one beach in the bay. You have a lot of restaurants all lined up along Los Muertos beach. You have the pier that's right over there. And really everything's within the walking distance in the romantic zone. Also like groceries, grocery stores, the banks. You need a tailor. You know, you want to buy some household furniture. I mean, we've got it all in the romantic zone, so you really don't need a car. And romantic zone, for the most part, from north to south, east to west, it's 10 blocks in either direction. So it's pretty small and it's pretty central. So from there, you can just kind of go out anywhere else you want. And it's a wonderful place to be. And if you're looking for like a rental investment, hands down, it's the cash cow of any neighborhood in the Bay of Banderas.
Yeah, for sure, of course, because it's like it's central. It's central to everything.
Yes.
And I actually, if you do want to live in romantic zone, you should not have a car. I mean, the traffic can get pretty crazy, I feel like. Yes, there's that big parking lot, but there's Uber and buses and stuff. So I just feel like it'd be a hassle more than anything. No, unless you're a little bit on the outskirts like you are, where you have parking in your building or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, starting about, I would say 7, 8 years ago, street parking became kind of a challenge in the romantic zone. We do have the underground parking
It's a
and
sport now.
what was that?
It's a
It's what?
sport now.
It's a sport?
It's a sport. Yeah.
Kind of
Finding
is. I mean,
parking in the romantic zone.
yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge, and you can kind of drive around for 20, 30 minutes sometimes at the peak of the high season and find nothing. So, but you've got all the conveniences in the romantic zone, so you really don't need a car. Of course, I need a car because I sell real estate. But if you're just here visiting for a few weeks or just kind of, you're not here to work, you really don't need a car in the romantic zone. So that's a beautiful thing for people like you and I that came from LA. I came from LA, and everyone needs a car in Los Angeles, right? I mean, there's no such thing as a walkable neighborhood really in Los Angeles.
So, what would you say is the second most popular neighborhood for expats to live in Vallarta?
So another great neighborhood I would say that's adjacent to the romantic zone is Amapas and Conchas Chinas. So Amapas and Conchas Chinas, they border one another. They're primarily hillside neighborhoods. So Lower Amapas is part of Los Muertos Beach, and sometimes people confuse that with romantic zone. So on the southern end of Los Muertos Beach, you're technically in Amapas. But Amapas and Conchas Chinas, residential areas, a lot of beautiful homes and new condos that have been going up there over the last 15, 20 years. And you're close to the romantic zone. And if you hop in the car or take a cab or Uber, you're really like, 5, 7 minutes away. So it's not far. But you get those beautiful views from being in the mountainside. And Lower Amapas and Lower Conchas Chinas is to the west of the Highway 200. And that's where you're right on the beach as well. So if you want to live on the beach, you can in those areas, or you want to be in the hillside and have a more panoramic view of the city and the bay, north and south. Those are fantastic regions. And you're not in the hustle bustle of the romantic zone. So a lot of people like that and still be close to all the action.
Right. But I would advise you get a good pair of walking shoes or you're in fairly good shape because the hills can be pretty challenging, say the
Yeah,
least. Or you're going to get into really good shape if you live in Malapas
yeah.
and Conchichinas.
Walking downhill is always easier than going up. I mean, I
Yeah.
lived I
Yeah.
lived in Upper Conchas Chinas for what was it, almost 7 years, and I walked my dogs down to the beach a couple times, which was maybe like a 10-minute, comfortable walk downhill to the beach. Walking up usually took at least twice as long, so it's a bit of a challenge, whether you're in shape or not. I just usually just hop in the car and drive into town. I have clients
Yeah.
that
I
live in El
mean,
Centro, where the Malecón is, and they walk. I mean, they're over 70 years old. They walk from downtown all through the romantic zone, Lower Amapas, Lower Conchas Chinas, and then they cross the highway and they go into the mountain. I mean, they spent like about an hour, hour and a half a day exercise and just kind of walk that whole route. I think they're kind of crazy. I could I couldn't do it, but they're in great shape. It works for them. If they can do it, then I think I should not put that off my list at 70. But yeah, I salute them for that.
even you can do
Even
it.
me,
But
yes.
yeah, no, of course, the trade-off is that you get these ridiculous views, right? So
Yeah.
that's the
Th-
trade-off.
They're
You live in the
multi-million
hilly
dollar
area,
views.
but yeah, for sure, for sure. So what would you say is kind of an up and coming neighborhood for expats?
Yeah, in Puerto Vallarta, I think one of the up and coming neighborhoods, I would say Versailles, and its neighbor Fluvial. those areas, they're in the flats. So if you're not really into the hills of Amapas and Conchas Chinas, that's a really great alternative. And also the price point there is significantly lower than the romantic zone. I would say price per square foot in the romantic zone would be the highest. But if you're priced out of that market, there are other neighborhoods to consider, and Fluvial and Versailles are those markets. And in those areas, you have a lot of cafes and restaurants that have opened up over the last 5 years. Costco is in Fluvial. You have other big box grocery stores, pet stores. Um, in Fluvial, there are no cobblestone streets. It's fairly new, so all the electrical is underground and it's flat. So if you have a walking disability, or if you just don't want to deal with cobblestones, you're afraid of snapping your ankle, that's a great area. And they do have some trails you can go like exercise and ride a bike or go jogging. And they have a couple of parks in Fluvial as well. And I've got two little chihuahuas, so it's kind of nice having the park and letting the dogs run and do their thing. And you're close to everything as well. If you look at the map of Puerto Vallarta and you focus on the largest commercial tourist areas, which I would say would be from the marina down to the romantic zone, not going further south. But if you just look at that stretch right there, Versailles Fluvial would be in the center of it. So that would be like in the heart of that area. So from there, you can easily go anywhere within 5 to 7 minutes. And another great area, along with Fluvial and Versailles, I would say is the marina. The marina is a bit more established. There are a lot of high-rise condos on the beach, and then you have a lot of really nice homes, maybe townhouse-style homes in the marina along the Gulf, as well as a lot of large, like big homes. There are some big homes in the marina along the golf course as well. Some clients of mine just bought a house and they're renovating over there. It's a really wonderful area. And you have some fantastic restaurants. There's a Starbucks there as well. So from the airport, you're literally like a 3-minute drive south and you're in the marina. And if you go just a little bit further south from the marina, another wonderful area would be the hotel zone. The hotel zone was just that long time ago. It was just only hotels. But in the last 15 plus years, you have a lot of condominium high rises right on the beach. They have all the bells and whistles, all the amenities that you want: fitness center, a spa, infinity edge pool overlooking the ocean. And you're right next to Fluvial and Versailles. So you can easily go to your Costco, go grocery shopping and back and forth, all the restaurants. So those are all really nice regions, and they all kind of, touch one another, and they're really close.
So would you see, I feel like Fluvial and Versailles feels very residential, as does Amapas and Conchas Chinas, right? I feel like Fluvial and Versailles is more family oriented. Would you agree?
Yeah, hands down. I have a lot of friends now that they have relocated from the States and they're living in Fluvial, because on the other side of Fluvial and Versailles, there's a neighborhood called Gaviotas, and you have a lot of bilingual schools over there and at the base of the mountain. So living in Fluvial Versailles, it's easy to kind of drop your kids off at the schools, the bilingual schools over there. And there's also the American school in the marina. I have clients who have kids over there as well. So whether you put them in the American school or one of the other bilingual schools near Gaviotas, it's a really quick, easy little drive. And in Fluvial, you do have a lot of really nice homes. They're newer homes. There are still a lot of lots that are undeveloped in Fluvial. So I think over the course of the next 15, 20 years, you're going to see more and more builds in that region. But what's nice, with Fluvial is they do have the commercial street, right? A few commercial streets. So that's where you're seeing a lot of the restaurants and like AT&T and other phone companies and party supply stores and everything. And then when you go into the little side streets, it's all residential. And they're mostly homes. They're starting to build condos in Fluvial now. We have a project called Versailles. We have a project called Valarte, and that's right behind Costco. And we're offering, commercial and residential right above. So that's one of the newer buildings that's going up. But for the most part in Fluvial right now, you're seeing a lot of homes. Now, when you go to Versailles, on the other side of Fluvial, there are a lot of older homes there. I would say Versailles was a good, like, middle-class Vallarta neighborhood. But in the last 6, 7 years, you're seeing condominiums being built up over there. So you still have a lot of old homes, but you have a lot of new builds as well.
What do you think about the 5th of December neighborhood? That used to be very popular. Would you say it's not so much anymore for foreigners?
before the 2008 recession, there were a whole bunch of buildings that went up and the 5th of December, and then things were quiet for a while. Nothing was being built over there, even though you're 5 minutes from the romantic zone. But now there are a number of new buildings going up in the 5th of December neighborhood. So it's coming back for sure. There's some great projects over there. And again, just like in Amapas and Conchas Chinas, 5th of December has the flat area that goes down to the beach, and then it slopes straight up and it goes to the mountains. But in 5th of December, I mean, it goes from flat to like this, like at a 45-degree angle. So it really jots up really fast. I mean, the views change literally within one block.
Yeah, and actually that brings up a good point in terms of, so the rainy season, when it does rain, the rains can be quite torrential, as I have experienced, and very humbling. So,
Yes.
I guess it's a question to ask, right, in terms of flooding or where you're at, if whatever neighborhood it is, really.
Yes.
So I
Well,
don't know if there are certain areas that you know of that is better. I mean, is it better to be higher up on the mountains or not necessarily? I mean, the reality is though, the rain doesn't last for a long time, but if you're not
right.
used to it, it is pretty crazy.
Right. Well, I mean, in
Oh,
the summertime is when we have our torrential downpours. August, September are wettest months, typically. And usually by the third week of October, the rain's kind of tapered off and we're entering the dry season. But, and like this year, it rained a lot in June and the beginning of July. And I thought, wow, we're going to have a really wet summer. And it kind of was a dud. We didn't really have that much rain compared to, the past seasons, past summers. But, I know what it's like when you do have that torrential downpour. You do not want to be out in the rain. It doesn't really matter if you're in the mountains or in the flats. I mean, each drop of rain is like the size of your cell phone. And sometimes it's
right.
it's raining. It's raining so hard and so thick, like you can't even see like 10 feet in front of you. It's like white sheets coming down. So it's quite something. If you're at home and you're on the balcony looking out at the rain, it's quite spectacular. But you don't want to be stuck in the rain. And in the romantic zone, and in the hotel zone and Versailles, anywhere in the flats, I mean, the drainage system can only just pump out that water, so much, right? So when it's raining like that, when Mother Nature is just coming at you, full storm, there's really nothing you can do. You just have to sit in your car or wait indoors until the rain stops. And then if you're in the hills, if you look out on maybe on your street, I mean, it's coming down like a river. So it's quite impressive and it's quite intimidating. So wherever you're going to live, just kind of know what that's going to be like in the summertime. And if you're going to go grocery shopping, usually the rains are coming later in the afternoon. So if you're going to be running errands, I would advise, kind of time it and maybe go run your errands in the daytime because the clouds typically start moving in, I would say around 3 or 4, and then you have the afternoon rains. And it could rain for a minute, it could rain for an hour, you just don't know. But rarely does it rain, a couple of hours at a time. It might taper off and start again and drizzle for a little bit. But, you definitely do want to know what your neighborhood's going to look like when you do have those thunderstorms and that rain pouring down.
Yeah, no, good point, good point. So do you feel like, according to your personality, like, are there a certain type of person that lives in the marina hotel zone? Is it like more like younger people, or I would say the romantic zone is probably more your partying younger
Okay.
people, or maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong about that, but
I
it's
thought you were
people
going
who
to
are very
analyze me.
active, right, and love to
I
be.
thought you were going to analyze me when you said, your
Oh, analyzing
personality.
you?
Well, look, if you want
Yeah,
to
your
go out,
personality.
I don't have a
You could do
personality.
your zodiac. You can do like what sign you are, and that's the neighborhood you should be
And
living
that's the
in.
neighborhood you have to live in.
Yeah.
And what time you can leave the house. Um,
So
well,
Pisces can be living in no.
if you're a social person, you like to kind of go out and mingle and socialize, you want to go out to restaurants all the time, then places like the Romantic Zone or Versailles might be great because Versailles, again, there are a lot of restaurants there and cafes that have opened up in the last few years. If you want something a bit more quiet, but you do like to go out, for dinners, maybe once or twice a week, and you want to be closer to town. So Marina has a lot of restaurants, right? Conchas Chinas and Mapas, you can just drive down to the Romantic Zone within a few minutes. Fluvial, Versailles is your neighbor. You can go there. In the hotel zone, you just hop in your car. You got Fluvial, Versailles, the marina's not too far off, and of course the romantic zone in downtown. If you really want quiet seclusion and you're kind of like a homebody, you plan on cooking and you really don't want to deal with the noise or people, you can go further south. There are places like Punta Negra Beach. There's Miss Maloya, Boca de Tomatlan. It's all residential there. They have a couple of restaurants on the beach, but that's basically it. And it's really, really quiet down there. It's more jungle and less developed as well. Of course, you can go further north, Bucerias has been growing considerably. There are a lot of restaurants there as well, a lot of construction on both sides of the highway. But then you can go into La Cruz. So those are kind of busy areas in terms of new condominium developments, but they're not as busy per se, the nightlife scene like the romantic zone.
That's great. That's great. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you in regards to choosing a neighborhood or finding a property, how do they reach you?
Sure. You can contact me through my website. It's TanielChemsian.com, or you can email me Taniel@TanielChemsian.com.